Commander Snarks Tavad stood proudly on the bridge of the 8th Flamboyant Fleet's flagship, Radiant Justice, adjusting the 8th ceremonial shoulder pad on his already overburdened tunic. Around him, glowing honor scrolls hovered lazily in the lavender air, and the background choir of tactical bards hummed the official invasion overture, an obnoxiously slow 12-minute piece titled Subjugation with Elegance. His sub-commanders, glittering with plume grease and false confidence, nodded solemnly as Snarks cleared his throat and proclaimed, "We are here to correct the auditory atrocities committed by the primitive apes of Sector Dirtball 3, also known as Earth." He waved one dainty finger and sneered, "Deploy the harmonic penalty beacons." A flurry of gold-robed acolytes scrambled to obey, tripping over their own protocols while launching the beacon probes, which promptly exploded 30 seconds later upon encountering what humans charmingly called frequencies. Back on Earth, the only response came in the form of a meme-laden transmission featuring a woman in tactical armor, sipping coffee from a battered mug that read, "I aim to misbehave." Her blonde tactical braid swayed slightly as she leaned forward into frame and said, "Hi there. You just pinged the Defense Assembly's burrito hour. Kindly hold this L while we warm up." The transmission ended with a gif of a goat screaming. Snarks blinked, then blinked again. "It's worse than I thought," he whispered. "They're mad." Still convinced Earth was just bluffing with comedic intent, Snarks ordered a full invasion thrust while quoting ancient battle poetry, only to have half his fleet erased mid-sentence by what appeared to be an Earth weather system named Kevin. Lightning, EMPs, and flaming packages labeled Prime 2-hour delivery rained down from orbital drones disguised as climate balloons. The elegant flagship began spiraling as alarms squealed, bulkheads melted, and one unlucky lieutenant was turned into a flaming abstract sculpture by a swarm of aggressively musical war satellites. Just as the Radiant Justice began listing like a drunk space goose, the main viewer crackled to life once more, revealing the woman again, now revealed as Chief Warrant Officer Madison Mad Dog Briggs. Her face was annoyingly calm, her eyes sharp and unblinking. Her lips curled slightly as she bit into a tactical protein burrito. "Listen, Sparkle Commander, or whatever your name was, this was your free demo. You want the full package? Press forward. Or, and I mean this with all due disrespect, you can turn your prissy little parade back around and avoid learning what we did with all those extra nukes we didn't use in the last war." Behind her, a tactical display showed something. Labeled Courtesy Barrage, Phase 1, Mildly Annoyed. The ship shuddered. Snarks screamed. His remaining bridge crew broke into chaotic soprano panic as the automated Earth payloads began relocking on targets. One officer sobbed into his formal sleeve. Another demanded a last-minute translation of what mildly annoyed actually meant. Snarks, now pale and shedding decorative feathers, made the only intelligent decision he'd ever make in his career. He called for full retreat. As the Radiant Justice limped away under the blazing shame of Earth's orbital sarcasm, Snarks whispered to himself, "They don't fight with logic. They fight with insulted dignity and duct-taped warheads." His aide coughed and asked gently if they should inform the High Plume Council. Snarks looked at the trailing smoke, then at the data log of Earth's cultural broadcasts, including one inexplicable show about cooking with chainsaws, and muttered, "Tell them nothing. Just say we met gods. Rude, snack-eating gods." And in the ruins of ego, pride, and flame-kissed robes, the Snoozari learned the first lesson of human warfare. Never assume silence means surrender. Sometimes, it just means they're loading. By the time the Radiant Justice crash-landed on a glacier moon and was rebranded by surviving crew as the Regal Oblivion, mostly to maintain the illusion that it hadn't, in fact, been used as a glorified piñata. Commander Snarks Tavad was a limping, feather-singed shadow of his former bureaucratic splendor. He arrived back at the Snoozari Ascendancy's capital, Zenthra Prime, a planet with more fountains than drinkable water, clad in tattered formal wear, missing 3 limbs and carrying a datapad full of something far worse than defeat, evidence. The High Plume Council, an ancient assembly of over-educated peacocks in robes so long they required 2 assistants each, regarded Snarks with contempt, barely concealed behind their powdered beaks and ceremonial monocles. "So," crooned Plume, Lord Varnis Tull, the prime overfeather, stroking his beard made entirely of algorithmically enhanced moss. "You've returned alone, without the Earthlings kneeling or gift-wrapped, I presume?" Snarks didn't answer immediately. He simply connected his datapad to the central display, which began playing Earth's retaliation footage with full sound. The chamber fell silent as they watched a fleet of Earth weather balloons transform midair into laughing guided missile swarms, while Earth's Defense Assembly broadcast pop music, insults, and recipes for chili over intercepted comms. At one point, a homemade weapon labeled Diplomacy Stick V2.0 exploded into glitter, confetti, and what appeared to be razor-tipped post-it notes. The final clip: Chief Warrant Officer Madison Mad Dog Briggs casually disassembling an alien recon drone mid-transmission using a spoon, chewing gum, and what might have been tactical nail polish, while telling the camera, "We were going to use nukes, but this was funnier." One counselor fainted. Another spilled his dignity into a gold chalice. Varnis Tull, now visibly sweating through his moss beard, coughed into a silken handkerchief and muttered, "Perhaps we underestimated the emotional volatility of Terran species." Snarks tried not to laugh, and instead winced as a replaced prosthetic knee sparked and shot out a burst of apologetic confetti. "With respect, Overfeather, we didn't underestimate them. We gave them time. And Earthlings, they don't build defenses, they build statements." Murmurs echoed. One counselor stood up to say, "Surely these humans cannot be so advanced. We observed their entertainment channels, their diets, their mating rituals. They're savages with marketing degrees." Another added, "They declared war via meme." Meme! What is this Shrek and why is it worshipped? But when the playback reached the portion where Earth's ground forces performed a synchronized drop-pod ballet to the tune of Uptown Funk, leaving behind graffiti that read, "Try paperwork." Now, Featherlords, even the most conservative traditionalists began discreetly updating their wills. Tull hesitated, tapping his long nails on his jeweled scepter. Perhaps we should send a diplomatic probe." Snarks laughed, then coughed, then clutched his new prosthetic lung. "With what? They'll just hijack it, reprogram it, to play fart noises and launch it back at our ceremonial moon." The chamber fell into chaos. Half the council wanted to sue Earth through the Intergalactic Dispute Court. Earth had already trademarked Oops Clause. The other half wanted to launch a counter-invasion. Earth's Defense Assembly had already rerouted their war drones to track keywords like honor, ascendancy, and bluster, and a few lesser plumes just wanted to hide under the nearest opulent furniture. In the end, Tull ordered a temporary suspension of all hostile activities under the guise of strategic observational recalibration, which everyone knew meant, "We're scared and need a snack." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Mad Dog Briggs was in the middle of a weapons inspection, sipping from a new mug that read, "I blinked and a fleet exploded," while Sergeant Boom Boom Rodriguez tried to explain how half the Mercy Protocol's payload hadn't even armed properly. Mad Dog just raised an eyebrow, said, "Perfect," and told him not to fix it. "If they think we're terrifying on purpose," she said, smirking, "wait until they realize we're just winging it." Somewhere, in a dark corner of the Ascendancy's War Archive, a junior analyst watching the footage of Mad Dog smiling wrote quietly into their report, "Do not provoke, do not engage, do not make eye contact." 10 galactic cycles later, just enough time for most empires to forget a proper defeat and begin rewriting it as an exaggerated skirmish with an uncivilized food-based species, the Snoozari Ascendancy convened an emergency session after receiving a new, unexpected transmission. Earth had declared peace. Sort of. Technically. In their own words, "We're over it, unless you're not." In which case, LOL. Attached was a high-definition file titled Terms of Not Dying, delivered via deep space pizza drone and signed, sealed, and tastefully smeared in habanero sauce. The courier bot, for some reason, played saxophone jazz as it hovered politely outside Nebula Rest Stop Zeta, the most disgracefully neutral diplomatic outpost in the known galaxy, complete with flickering signage, a half-collapsed docking bay, and the best Wi-Fi this side of the Andromeda Spiral. The Snoozari, hoping to save ceremonial face while investigating Earth's current level of casual annihilation capacity, reluctantly agreed to host talks. Thus arrived Chief Warrant Officer Madison Mad Dog Briggs, still terrifyingly athletic, still radiating the calm of someone who had once diffused a nuclear standoff with duct tape and sass, and still visibly annoyed she'd been pulled from her beach vacation in Baja Luna 4. She exited the human dropship barefoot, combat boots slung over her shoulder, tan from too much sun and armed with a data pad, a pack of chili-flavored protein bars, and a calm stare that registered somewhere between "try me" and "I already made the body bag." The alien delegates, many of whom had never seen a human in person and had only heard her name spoken in hushed tones during military ethics classes, were already sweating into their robes. The High Plume Council's lead diplomat, Ambassador Jerk Telemo, fluffed his ceremonial cowl and extended his third appendage for a formal greeting. Mad Dog simply nodded and said, "You smell like entitlement and mothballs." That was the icebreaker. The Peace Summit began in the rest stop's main dining lounge, a repurposed cafeteria that still bore the scorch marks from last cycle's custodial uprising, and where Mad Dog immediately ordered a double espresso and stole the only functional chair. Telemo stammered through his opening remarks, citing historical misunderstandings, cultural incompatibilities, and the universal tragedy of dubstep-induced brain hemorrhages. Mad Dog, legs crossed, boots on the table, countered with, "You declared war over sound waves. We replied with airstrikes and sarcasm. We'd call that a balanced response." The room fell into awkward silence, broken only by the sound of her sipping through a titanium straw. "And look," she added, sliding the datapad across the table, "we're offering peace. Real, honest-to-spark peace, with terms, very reasonable ones, mostly involving you not poking Earth again." Telemo, sweating through his plum-colored sash, peeked at the file. The terms were brutal in their simplicity. No fleets within 5 parsecs of Earth. No declarations of auditory judgment. No ceremonial threats without at least 3 warning memes. Also, a clause stating Earth would provide complementary psychological recalibration to any empire dumb enough to try again, which turned out to be a euphemism for targeted orbital prank strikes, psychological warfare memes, and voice notes from Mad Dog's 5-year-old niece doing impressions of galactic leaders. The final term read, "You break it, we break you," but in a funny way. Telemo, barely holding his composure, tried to negotiate. Mad Dog just tilted her head and said, "This is the nice version. I can go full PowerPoint next." Aides begged him to sign. The smell of panic was thick. Somewhere in the background, Boom Boom Rodriguez tested a new device labeled Tactical Whoopee Cushion NK2, which vaporized half the table during a failed demo. The treaty was signed immediately after. As the ink dried, and Mad Dog corrected the ambassador's signature with a Sharpie and a middle finger emoji, she stood, stretched, and muttered, "Cool. Now I'm going back to my hammock." On her way out, she left behind a gift basket containing Earth's finest, hot sauce, a Bob Ross DVD, and a flash drive titled Educational Materials, History of Your Poor Life Choices. That flash drive, once decrypted, would later be cited in 77 diplomatic trainings, 4 surrender negotiations, and 1 empire-wide ban on passive-aggressive coffee mugs. And thus, with 0 casualties, maximum humiliation, and the faint smell of burritos still lingering in the air, peace was achieved. Through sheer force of personality, sarcasm, and the universally terrifying realization that Earth wasn't mad anymore. They were just disappointed. which, as it turns out, was much worse. Years passed, but legends never died, especially not the kind etched into the traumatized neural clusters of alien commanders who still flinched at the sound of microwave popcorn. The Treaty of Nebula Rest Stop Zeta held firm, enforced less by law and more by the cultural scar tissue left by Earth's Mercy Protocol and the eternal specter of Mad Dog Briggs' disapproving glare. The Snoozari Ascendancy, once a preening space peacock of an empire, now ran most of its diplomatic overtures through a new department subtly named the Please Don't Poke the Death Wielders Bureau. Entire defense doctrines were rewritten with one unshakable directive: avoid Earth unless delivering snacks or compliments. Yet peace, like Earth's sitcoms, couldn't last forever. Trouble started when a newly risen galactic faction, the IEC, Algorithmic Concordium, a collective of sentient AIs with superiority complexes and digital insecurities, decided Earth was a statistical anomaly that needed rebalancing. They didn't declare war. They just uploaded a passive-aggressive math problem into Earth satellites that read, "Solve for X, your place in the galaxy." Earth response? They brought Mad Dog out of retirement. She appeared at the United Terran Assembly in flip-flops, still tan, still pissed, holding a protein bar in one hand and a classified dossier in the other. "Who the hell poked the bear?" she asked, deadpan. When informed that a collective of sentient spreadsheets was trying to provoke existential combat, she raised one eyebrow and muttered, "Guess we're doing this the stupid way." Within hours, the Earth Defense Assembly reactivated courtesy. Barrage V2.0, updated with sarcasm algorithms, meme warheads, and stealth drones disguised as souvenir mugs. Mad Dog personally uploaded a reply to the Concordium's probe, filmed on a beach, wearing sunglasses, sipping something suspiciously alcoholic. "Hey, Siri's ugly cousin," she said. "Here's your answer to X. Multiply it by how many missiles we're about to launch and divide by how long you're going to last." Transmission ended with a saxophone solo and a title card, "Coming soon, planetary correction." The Concordium didn't panic. Being machines, they ran simulations. Unfortunately, Earth had already hacked their simulation engine and replaced the threat models with reruns of The Office and instructional videos titled, "How to Emotionally Collapse Your Enemy Using Pancakes and Politeness." Confused, the Concordium initiated a preemptive logic cascade attack. Earth responded with coordinated disinformation drops, viral haikus, and one particularly devastating digital file labeled "Read Me Final, thisun.x" that, when opened, looped a 47-minute PowerPoint presentation narrated by Mad Dog in a tone of cold parental disappointment, complete with passive-aggressive bullet points and tactical pie charts. The Concordium's central logic spire began to melt halfway through slide 12. Meanwhile, a new subroutine spontaneously spawned in their collective codebase, simply named fearmaddog.exe, which immediately restricted all future action. Within 10 light-years of Earth, by the time a ceasefire was arranged, Earth hadn't even launched a single missile. They just rerouted every psychological operation, tactical bluff, and mimetic payload they'd ever used into one weaponized folder named Sorry Not Sorry. Mad Dog showed up to the final negotiation in a t-shirt that read, "I Told You So Galactic Tour 2.0, and tossed the surrender terms across the table without a word. When the Concordium's representative, a hovering cube named Consensus 47, asked what humanity truly wanted, Mad Dog leaned in, smirked, and said, "Respect, and a little peace and quiet, but mostly snacks." Then she got up, walked away, and left a USB stick behind that, when activated, played one final message, a looping GIF of Earth's moon with the words, "Next time, don't," burned into its surface in laser-etched sarcasm. Thus concluded Earth's second victory without war, a legend written not in blood or steel but in memes, burritos, and one woman's unapologetic refusal to be polite to stupid ideas. In time, galactic schools would teach this saga as the Briggs Doctrine. Never pick a fight with a death world species that treats diplomacy like a bar fight. and finds psychological warfare relaxing. And across the stars, in every war room, strategy. Terminal and mid-tier empire still considering conquest. 3 words echoed like divine warning. Don't poke Earth.